Welcome to the Taking a Breath podcast with Parker Mays.
Welcome back, everybody, to Taking a Breath podcast for young leaders. Today, I've got a fantastic interview for you guys. Karl Rodland is joining me here. He is an executive advisor and former managing director of NHHS Consulting that specializes in market research for startups and small and medium-sized enterprises. He's finishing his CEMS degree, which is one of the world's most prestigious double degrees in business and international management. Karl's also a former Navy drill corporal, where he has instructed and taught hundreds of recruits in intensive basic training boot camp. He's also the host of the Unleashing Human Potential podcast, and together with Tim Highnam, he founded Rise Theory, which is a Europe-based 5 a.m. call for high performers. So Karl, thanks so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have you on. Would love for you to share a little bit more about yourself and then just how you got to where you are today.
Man, first of all, thank you for a great introduction. It's awesome to be here. Yeah, so I'm from this little country called Norway, and it's funny because like sometimes I speak to Americans and they're like, Norway, is that in like Europe or Africa, or like I know we're a small country, we're like 5 million inhabitants, but yeah, man, just growing up, you could say I've been always living in the shadows of my father when I was young, because my father was in the special forces. He was the CEO of several different companies, and I always felt that I had to live up to him. I felt that, the only thing I knew when I grew up was to achieve and to accomplish my goals. So I did that. And I was able to get into the Naval Academy, just like you said, where it was 23 that got in out of 700 applicants. And then I got into the best business school in Norway, right? But the problem was that, and like all these things, they sound so grand and nice, but the thing was, even though I accomplished my goals, I still felt empty inside. So when I started on my bachelor's, right, I just remember just wanting to be liked, wanting to be a part of the crew, wanting to fit in. I was applying for all the clubs, all the social clubs, all the teams, all the sport teams, and I was just craving that acknowledgement, that just feeling accepted, just feeling good enough, right? So in that period, I was like living kind of like in a limbo, and I kind of lost myself, because even though I accomplished, like the more I accomplished, the more empty I felt inside. I felt that I sort of lost touch with myself. And that's really how I started to get into personal development, which I know that you and me are both huge on. So after that, I really started to go on that journey and that search of figuring myself out, asking the important questions. Am I living my life for myself, or am I living my life for other people's expectations or my family's expectations of who I should be? So it's really, the last couple of years, the last year, I'd say, where I took extreme ownership, right? Extreme ownership of who I am today. And I've certainly learned a lot during the way, but that's kind of how I want to kick this off and sort of give you an introduction that's not, all just flowery and roses and nice. So yeah, that's a bit about me so far.
That's so powerful. And it's pretty rare that people jump in with the kind of the backstory, because like most people, they want to say, oh, here's where I am. And as you mentioned, you're at this great place right now, but it wasn't always like that. I'm curious, if you don't mind sharing, what was that turning point, or what was that point where you said, hey, I am feeling empty, but now I actually want to make that shift toward that extreme ownership that you are really taking now?
100%. Yeah, I think that would have been back in 2018. I was in the Netherlands. I was enjoying myself at exchange. I had a long man bun, and from the outside, everything looked good. I was kind of like the party guy, and we were like partying all the time during that exchange, and we're doing a lot of fun stuff, a lot of cool stuff, and it was all fun and games. But I just felt that the more I tried to solve my issues with external things, like, oh, just go to the parties, just be social, just get fancy new clothes, that period of my life was a turning point, because I just got so sick and tired of pretending, because I was kind of like this cool party guy, but on the inside I was insecure. On the inside, I was afraid of just approaching a girl, and that at that point, I remember I was just sitting on the balcony with one of my good friends from Ireland, and we started to talk a bit about, like the bigger picture on life. And I remember him taking out his phone, and he shows me this video of a guy talking about perspective and death, and going on that inner journey to discover more, stop putting everything on the externalities, stop chasing for the answers on the outside, go seek the truth within you. And I remember at that moment, I just felt like I watched that, and even though the message was really plain and simple, it was just something about that moment that made me realize that what I'm doing right now, I'm not doing it for me, and I'm sick and tired of that. So after that period, that kind of opened myself up to personal development and books and searching for answers. I remember coming back from that exchange, I like cut my hair, no more man bun. And I remember I was just firmly committed for a change. And half year later, I sit in the study hall at my school, and it's like lunch break, and all the other people like putting up their lunches, and I go in to watch some YouTube, right? And at that moment, right, I go into YouTube, and this same guy pops up that I've been watching, that I was shown back on my exchange. And he was like, I'm coming to Oslo, haven't been in Norway for 5 years. You have to be there. And I remember I just like, this is it. So I jumped on the opportunity. I booked a flight back to Oslo because I live in Bergen. And I remember just going to the seminar and feeling like a weirdo. And I was completely alone. I was a stranger. I didn't know anybody. It felt really weird because, like, why do you need help with yourself? Like, that's a weird thing, trying to improve yourself, right? But crazy thing was, at that seminar, I met two of my closest friends right now, and one I actually live with right now. And that was sort of the linchpin to the stuff I'm doing now. My latest accomplishments wouldn't have happened if I didn't begin that journey,
That's insane. And I think there's a lot of relatability in that idea of, hey, I was feeling at a low point and this thing happened and it changed my trajectory, right? It wasn't just like, oh, it changed your situation in a moment. It changed actually the trajectory of where you headed, that one moment or the different things. So I love that you shared that and really like brought it in such detail. What I'd love to do is go a little bit further back to your time in the Navy, because I know you were there for a few years and had a lot of experiences with discipline and leadership within that environment, a lot of learning about that. So I was curious, during that time as a Navy corporal, what did you learn about leadership and discipline that stuck with you now that you're in business and consulting and life in general?
My experience from the Navy is one of the experiences that I'm most grateful for. And what's interesting about that is also the times that suck the most. right? I remember being on our exam exercise because it was really, really intense. I remember I was so out of everything that I fell asleep standing. There was people seeing, dragons, and there was little to no food, no sleep, and constantly solving demanding problems in demanding conditions. And what that really taught me was that I I can accomplish so incredibly much more than I think.
Yes.
And this is something that David Goggins talks about in his book, Can't Hurt Me. The thing is, one thing is to listen to that and understand it logically. Another thing is to live it and experience it. And actually, you're in the basement, you're in the mud, you haven't slept for 3 days, you haven't eaten anything for 3 days, you've been walking through the woods, and you have like frost wounds on your shoes, and people are falling around you, and have to make sure that your teammates are safe. And when you're the leader, you have to take charge in those demanding circumstances, right? And so number one, the biggest thing I have, one of the most important things for me personally from the Navy, is that you have so much more within you. And 70% is mindset. 30% is just being physically able to get, like, you don't break a leg, you're not fragile, so you can get through some shit. But how much is in your mind? It's insane. The things I've seen people be able to do when they just go deep down into their basement and they just drag themselves out of it, and they just keep continuing. That's one thing I'd like to share. And then when it comes to leadership, what the Navy really did for me is to understand human beings, understand how we work, understand how to motivate. As a leader, you are the person who are responsible for painting the vision, to creating the direction where you want people to go, right? And you have to stand in the storm, and you have to lead from the front when stuff seems extremely demanding, extremely challenging. You are the person who are responsible for driving your team forward. So with being a leader, it comes great responsibility, right? Because your job is to really facilitate for that your team have what they need, right? Your job is to sit down with your team, listen to your team. What are they feeling? What are their fears? What are their emotions? How can you help them to thrive? How can you facilitate that trust? How can you say, hey, I see you, I understand you, we will get through this together? That's what I've sort of really seen good leadership being, and something that I've implemented in my career after the Navy is, as a leader, it's not about you. It's not about you being the prize winner. It's not about you looking good. It's about you listening to your team. It's about you serving them, serving their needs. It's not about it being above. That's a bad leader. A good leader paints the why, and you create such a strong why that people will just be so energized by that vision that you paint that they will do anything for you to get there.
Yeah.
And you let them do the how. That's probably one of the most important things too. You set the why, but you do not involve anything in the how, because they need responsibility. They need to feel personal connection and ownership of their task. So I know I went on a little rant here. I mean, this is a topic I'm extremely passionate about.
Yeah. No, it's so powerful. And I'm fascinated by that idea of the why, how, kind of the Simon Sinek golden circle, if you're familiar, starting with why, the how, and then the what. And that idea of, leaders being the inspiring center, the why, and then the team, the people that are around you doing the how and the what and empowering them. That's fascinating to me. So I love that you shared that. As you're talking about all these experiences that you've gone through, did you ever feel that urge to give up? Did you ever feel that, like, in the moment of everything beating down, or was your like what you mentioned with David Goggins and mental toughness, had you already built that prior to being in the Navy and training?
I think that's a conditioning. It's sort of like an instinct you build when you go through that type of training, is that either you continue or you die. The enemy doesn't care. The enemy doesn't care. And to get into a state of pure survival, of pure animalistic instinct, when you're able to dig into that state, then you can accomplish some things that you wouldn't thought you would be able to, because you unlock something that is within every human being, right? So to answer your question, I feel for me, that's something I learned when I went through training, when I went through hard times. It's about prepping. You learn to prep for bad situations. You learn to prep for when stuff is hectic. You're sleeping and you're just minding your own business. You're just like, oh, this is all fun and good, and then suddenly there's an alarm and you have no idea. So just that notion of being prepared for anything can happen, and going down to basics, because it's not about you being able to rise to the occasion and be the best version of yourself when that happens. It's about you fall to the level of your training, and you probably heard this before.
Yes.
So what we really did was just prepping uncertainty, prepping challenging circumstances, prepping things we didn't know what were going to happen. So we became more comfortable with ambiguity, and that's really what you train for. And I think having that experience is something that have really helped me through the ups and downs after the Navy.
Yeah. Let's fast forward to, now you're in business, you're in school, you're doing some side projects. What does that balance look like for you? How do you balance all of the different things that you're going on, and how do you know where you're giving the most attention to?
So first of all, I can say that I always strive to be 1% better every day. I try to be as objective as I can and look at myself from kind of a third view perspective. Like, I am playing myself, like I am the character in the video game, and I'm playing the character. And if the character is, just like sleeping in and, just not really being productive, then you can see the character's health scores go down. You can see that it's getting like chubbier and more lazy and less attractive, and like all these things. And I kind of like to use that perspective, because, if I get up 5:30 every day, and if I don't do that, that's an objective measure. It's like, oh, I was supposed to do that, I didn't do that. Okay, why didn't I do that? Oh, well, I went to bed a bit late. Why did that happen? And just objectively look at what I'm doing, where I can improve, and try to really optimize That's kind of a thing that I'm focusing on right now. But in relation to activities and rituals and habits, I'm very sort of extreme on my habits and rituals. I get up every day in the morning. I work out. I do like runs. I do mountain runs. So we have a mountain up here. So I like to run up the mountains in like the snow and like put on some Rocky and just like
awesome.
Just really enjoying the pain, cold showers and journaling. I like to do that, writing down what I'm grateful for every day. I think is also extremely important to focus on the abundance we have in our lives instead of what's not there, right? And then most of my time right now goes to my degree. As you mentioned in the beginning, I'm doing 2 degrees, so that's really hectic, and there's a lot of deadlines and stuff coming up now. And then there's a consulting company on the side, and then some other projects and gigs. So you could say that my plate is
stacked,
pretty full, but I'm just like enjoying. This is what I tell my friends, at least I'm not bored. At least I'm not bored.
And at least you're doing things that you want to be doing. I mean, you're very intentional with your time. You're choosing where you're spending your time. And a lot of people can't say that as clearly as you can, where you're saying, hey, everything that I'm involved in, I'm so excited about it. And it's really achieving that goal of like the 1% better every single day. So I love that. The other thing that I was going to mention is I love that idea of you're watching yourself from this third party perspective. I've never heard it like that before, but that's fascinating of, if I'm just objectively looking at my life, this week, didn't exercise at all, like wasted a lot of time, like didn't, XYZ, if I'm just looking at my life from that third party perspective, I'm going to be able to call that out versus in the moment, I'm just like, oh, I didn't feel like it, or I didn't want to do this. And it takes that excuse away because the emotions are out of it. You're just looking objectively at what you're doing. So fascinating idea.
100%. And I think a big one there is also don't take everything so personal, don't take life too personal, and don't take life too serious, because you're not going to get out of it alive. So having that little mischief and sort of, I know I'm here for a limited time. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to spend the time on things that are important for me, on projects that I'm really passionate about and drive me forward. And yeah, I definitely have a totally different life now, just how engaged I am with everything I'm doing. Just feel a lot more energized. And I think that comes from just figuring out who you are and what you want, and then just completely block out the rest of the world, and you do you, baby. Yeah, that's what I tell myself. You do you, baby.
You mentioned like some of the projects you've been working on. We've talked about it a little bit. I know one of the big ones was that you co-founded a leadership conference last year. And I was curious to hear a little bit more about this. What was it like for you kind of organizing and coordinating such a high profile event? And I remember you mentioned, for context, we had a call back in December, and you mentioned that the chief of defense of Norway, the highest ranking military leader in Norway, was at this event. So what was that like? What was that experience like, organizing it and then, orchestrating everything together?
It comes down to understanding more about human beings and human psychology and connections, like our common friend, Jasmina Ellens, the host of the Young Entrepreneur's Journey. Shout out to her. She is an expert at this, right? First of all, it's just opening yourself up to the possibility of that you can reach out to anybody as long as you know how. As long as you know how human beings work, how you write something concise, and you have the connections that's able to just get that foot into the door.
Yes.
Then you can literally reach whoever. And that's sort of what we did. In the beginning, we didn't aim that high for that profile people. And I remember, sitting together with the team that were arranging this, and we said, oh, we're gonna, invite this person. It was like, mid-level
Sure.
people. And I remember I said, like, let's just go for gold. There's the two most profiled people in Norway is the prime minister and the chief of defense, right?
Okay.
So we went for the chief of defense, and we just like started to see opportunities. Okay, who knows who? How can we get to somebody that can deliver our message to him? How are we going to tailor the message? Right. And we just did a lot of good preparation. And I think that when he saw that, he was delighted to come, because we had did the preparation it took to actually get his attention. Insane. If that makes sense.
Insane. Any tips on that initial outreach? Anything that you learned in those messages that could help any young person trying to get either a conversation or just anything with someone who's high profile?
Yeah, sure. So this is creds to Jasmina Ellis, okay. First of all. So reach out to her if you want to learn more about this stuff. But a really good thing you can do is just, okay, number one, realize that high profile people, high level individuals, they're really busy. So if you send an email just starting with, "There so-and-so, I know you're really busy." Yeah. And then insert, I wondered if you could point me in the right direction. Bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. Make it really easy and simple as possible. Concrete. Dribble some enthusiasm for the person's work, how that person has changed your life, so and so, and then you're really good to go. But if you start, the worst thing you can do is start out with the me approach, like, yes, I'm doing this, I'm having this podcast, and I want to have you on because I, like that approach, it doesn't work, because people care about what they want, right? So how can you give the person what he wants, or she?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And realizing, okay, hey, I need to actually go deep into figuring out what excites them, what gets them, what brings them value, and how can I connect that to, long-term what I want, but really focused on, hey, what are they interested in? The last question I had for you is around, so you have your podcast, Unleashing Human Potential. I wanted to talk a little bit about that idea, because it seems like a lot of what you've done over the years is about this idea of helping people to achieve to their full potential, whether it's, your degree or your time in the Navy or, your business now. So, or your consulting work now. So I'm curious, why is that idea, Unleashing Human Potential, so important to you, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it goes back to that moment, right? When I'm in the woods and I think, I can't do this anymore. I want to stop. I want to sleep. I just want to, I'd rather die. But then there's that little voice that just says, if you walk 15 more minutes now, you'll be able to sit down on a rock and you're able to change socks. That's the most blissful thing that anybody could give you. Right? And you just need to move 15 minutes more forward, because the way you do marches is that we split up 50-minute walking, 10-minute break, right? 15-minute walk, 10-minute break. And you can go on like that for days and days and days. And so first of all, in regards to unleashing human potential, it's about, I've seen what some people are capable of. I've seen what myself is capable of. And then I just got so interested in why we are holding ourselves back. Why it's not that, oh, you're going to get this thing and then you become great. The greatness is already within us, right? And it's the notion of this great movie, the Coach Carter, if you haven't seen it, right, where he says, it's not the darkness that frightens us the most. it is the light, right? It's our capabilities that frightens us. Like, what if you could actually accomplish your dreams? That's a really scary thought. And that whole idea of flipping the script of, no, it's not that, you achieve those and those skills or those obsessions, so then you become great. Like greatness is in within us. We have this potential within us, but people are holding themselves back from that potential, the way that we're conditioned by society, the way we grow up, the way we're told, like, oh no, like this is not that easy, and oh, you should do this, or you should do that, or you should think like this, or say this, or you can't say that, you can't do that, So that's really, I just got an immense interest into that and started to reflect on what's holding me back. So then I wanted to interview people that have been through the same and learn from other people that has had that experience of unleashing their potential.
Heck yeah, I love that. And I love that idea of greatness being within you. And actually, it's not about making you great, it's about figuring out how to bring that out of you. And so that idea I connect with so much. Karl, where can people find you if they want to see more of your content, if they want to listen to the podcast, all of these things? Where can people find more of you?
Sure. So first of all, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's Karl Hakon Rodland. And when it comes to the podcast, you can just, let's see, Spotify or Google, Unleashing Human Potential. It should come up. It's a fairly new podcast, 2 episodes out by now, but we got tons recorded that's about to get launched. Extremely excited about that. And if you are interested if you are in Europe and you want to get up 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning, then you can also find me and Tim on Rise Theory, which you can find on my LinkedIn profile. Yeah.
Heck yeah. I'll definitely link your LinkedIn in the description. And actually, for listeners, so I had Greg Santos on a while back. And so Karl's first episode was actually Greg. So if you liked Greg, check out that episode, because I listened to it the other day. And dude, Greg is, he's just an incredible speaker, and he's so constantly growing. So shout out to that episode specifically, which I have listened through and got immense value from. So love it. Keep it up, Karl. For anyone that's listening, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Taking a Breath Podcast. I'll pull clips from this. We pull clips every week. And then also we meet every Saturday morning. Karl was on one of these group meetings on Zoom at one point, and we bring in guests and we do conversations, all this different type of stuff. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check us out through the link in our bio on Instagram. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Taking a Breath podcast with Parker Mays.